Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, how are my snipers doing today? I hope you guys are doing fantastic. Listen, today we're talking about the one and only Zebec network. Now, listen, ladies and gentlemen, you know me, you know I love this coin, right? Discovered it a couple of weeks ago. I would say around the end of April, beginning of May is when I discovered Zebec. And I was like, wait, hold on. I really like this market structure. I really, really love the technical analysis on this. And I was like, wait, I see an expansion coming up, zooming through soon, and I'm like, let me find out about what the hell this project is about. And let me tell you, it was one of the best decisions I've ever done. Not only did I in the community obtain a roughly 3x in about 2 to 3 weeks, but ladies and gentlemen, it was such a nice hidden gem. It wasn't like super, super hidden, but it was kind of like a hidden gem. And man, this thing is beautiful. And this project will take off very, very well. Now, you might be seeing some certain lines on this chart. You might be a little bit confused. Let me explain this because this is an indicator that I use, and it has very, very good and accurate settings. It has been modified quite a bit, and I'm just here to show you what it's about. So we have this orange and green line. When the orange is above the green, it means we are bullish. When the green is above the orange, it means we are bearish, right? Very, very simple. So we can clearly see something like on the monthly level. I mean, the green doesn't even exist here, but on the weekly level, right, we are super, super bullish, right? Even if we drop, ladies and gentlemen, a good amount, this green line is absolutely super, super far away from this orange line. When we go to something like the daily, we could actually see, right? We got that extra insane bullish confirmation when we had this breakthrough, right? On Monday, July 21st, right? Because, it was kind of a 50-50. We had these boom over here, we had this over here, we had this over here. And even though the weekly closed very, very good, in terms of the daily, you wouldn't be able to tell, right? The weekly structure was actually so beautiful, right? Because we had the higher low, so we knew it's going to go up. But in terms of the daily, you didn't know that, right? You didn't know that if you're just looking at the daily. So that is why the indicator showed, once we kind of, you know, bursted through on Monday, that's when it showed the confirmation of this bullish structure. And we can see, right, even though we have pulled back a decent amount, right, the orange line is still super, super far from the green one. So we have nothing to really worry about. you know I actually found a very, very accurate time frame for an indicator, and it is the 3 hour chart. Now, it isn't super perfect, but it does find very, very nice key zones. If we go even all the way back here, kind of the moment we crossed here, we never touched the green line, and we were practically perfect, right? We can even see there was little gaps here. And the moment we broke this structure up here, right? Boom, this type of triangle, and we broke to the downside, that is when, just when it started to sell off was the confirmation. So it was beautiful, right? It was literally beautiful. You could have got in, somewhere up here, let's say for a sell, and you would have been seeing very, very nice profits. So the 3 hour is very, very accurate. Of course, it has, certain, it's not perfect all the time, right? It does have its minor flaws here and there, but in terms of key momentum switches, we can clearly tell it is night and day. Now, we have actually crossed below the green line. We have, right? But we know we are fairly bearish on the short term, right? We know that because we did say there's going to be a correction phase, right? We just had this narrow move to the upside, right? Extremely, extremely narrow. And, narrow market structure doesn't hold forever. That is the reality, okay? Narrow market structure doesn't hold forever. So it is expected to have some type of pullback. And, it's not really surprising to me, right? We still have zero confirmation that we are going to be going up higher, right? The closest thing we have is we could assume this trend line will hold, but I don't think it's going to hold, right? Because just in terms of regular structure, right, we have a high over here, we have this low, then we have an equal low, but we have a lower high, and then we broke below these two lows, right? We broke below this. So it's a clear staircase to the downside. So even if we pull up, right, most likely we will be closing right over here. Sometimes English, it's kind of hard, you know what I'm saying? No, but seriously. So we will be monitoring this, right? We will be monitoring this. Um, you know, just because I'm short-term bearish, it doesn't make me bearish against this coin in general. I just understand that pullbacks have to happen, right? We probably will get something very, very similar to not this no, but I think we're gonna get something similar to kind of like the way we went down here after a nice narrow rally, right? We went diagonally and sideways before we had a huge expansion, right? A huge, huge expansion. So it would not surprise me if we kind of go diagonal for some time, eventually break up, right? Retest off this, go down diagonally one more time to then squeeze, 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 and be making our way to the upside, right? Something like this is probably going to happen. The weekly looks solid. We could debatably pull back a little bit lower. I mean, like, yeah, around this would be fine because this is where the big support and resistance is. So if we tapped one more time on the weekly, or I guess on the new monthly candle back down here, then this would be a fantastic buying opportunity and it would make the most sense on a higher time frame as well. But ladies and gentlemen, ultimately, I'm super bullish, right? I'm super bullish. Every couple of days, some kind of crazy news comes out with Zebec, saying, some kind of partnership or some kind of innovation or this or that or some type of just good news. And there's no reason to be pessimistic about this coin, right? We can go and look at the Boom Coin Base, sorry, not Coinbase, Coin Market Cap. We can see that we are 450 million market cap, 38 million volume, and things look very, very solid. We see the community sentiment is 88%, which obviously doesn't really matter what people think unless it's overwhelmingly negative. Then it's most likely a scam, but clearly not a scam. So while this lows, we're going to see how many holders there are. And ladies and gentlemen, once again, exchange listings. There's still so many exchange listings that we get possibly listed on. So there's so much upside. There's so much upside with the XRP partnership potentially. The structure is great. The volume is great. The community is great. Their team. We just a couple of days ago, maybe like 2 weeks ago max, we looked at how many people were part of the team, and they're growing. Everything is just growing numbers. There's no warning signs, and we even see in holders, right? Just on the 28th, we're at 77,000 holders. And now we almost have 2,000 more in less than a week. How is that not bullish? How is that not bullish? Everyone is bandwagoning on Zebec, right? Everyone is bandwagoning on Zebec. So yeah, I don't know. You guys be the judge at the end of the day. The data is presented in front of you. I personally think, this coin will do wonders. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, let me know what you guys think. I love you guys so, so much. And I'll talk to you guys next time. Goodbye.